Hello and welcome, folks. In this three-part mini-series, I would like to bring to your attention some really important points that you probably haven't been told about trust. But trust me, you definitely need to know this information. This information has the power to absolutely change the way you see things and even to completely change your life. Bold claims, I know, but I wouldn't say these if they weren't true. So, shall we get into it? Act 1 is starting soon, so get yourself nice and comfortable. So, before we get really deep into the juicy stuff, I have to tell you something. When I mentioned trust before, what I really meant is the legal concept of trust, not the type of trust that you have with your friends and family. We are talking about the trusts, as in a legal arrangement of trusts regarding ownership of property. In these videos, I will be showing you some advanced trust concepts, which means that you do need to have some knowledge about trusts already so that this information actually makes sense to you. And no, this does not mean you have to be an expert or have a degree in law or anything like that. You just need to have good foundational knowledge which can be built upon with the information that we will be going through in these videos. I have actually done a detailed series of presentations to get you started in this field, which you can actually find under the playlist called the Foundations of Law series, which you can watch at any time to get the foundational knowledge that you will need to be able to move forwards. So if you have any doubts at all about what a trust is, then I recommend you go through that Foundations of Law series first, which will hopefully make things clear for you and set you off in the right direction. So with that in mind, would you believe me if I told you that trusts are everywhere that you turn? Yes, no, maybe? Well, by the end of this three-part video series, you will hopefully have a solid answer for sure. So just to set the scene, let's go over a quick summary of what a trust is so we are all in the same boat from the beginning. So, a trust relationship arises whenever someone, known as the settlor, gives property to another, known as the trustee, for them to hold on to for the benefit of a third party, called a beneficiary. Trusts can be created either expressly, so referring to writing, orally, or by conduct, or they can arise by operation of law, meaning it is not through the intention of a party, but rather it is imposed by equity whenever required, and these are referred to as implied or constructive trusts. And the key thing to remember is that a trust can be at play and you could be a party to it without you even having any knowledge of this or even having any knowledge of the legal concept of trust. Again, if any of this is new to you, then definitely check out the Foundations of Law series where we discuss all of this over there. A trust is a very flexible legal arrangement, which anyone can create and also get involved in. One thing to note is that whoever creates a trust can mold and shape it into whatever they like, obviously, within reason and the bounds of the law. You actually have an unlimited ability to create trusts or to be a party to a trust, which is a right that you have which you can choose to exercise or not. It is totally up to you. Your ability to create trusts does not require permission from anyone or anything, and it is not a privilege that is granted to you by someone else or another entity outside of yourself. This means that there is no outside party that can control the creation of trusts, which means naturally that the trust only applies to the parties to the trust and no one else. Those parties to the trust owe duties to each other, but no one else. You may have heard the saying, "He who creates controls." Well, this saying is so true and undeniable because what you create, whether they're physical things or if you come up with good ideas which are intangible, it doesn't matter. If you created them, you control what you do with them. You can keep them for yourself, you can sell them on, you can gift them to someone else, whatever you choose. This saying also applies to trusts as well. When you as a settler create a trust, you set the terms of that trust through a detailed trust deed or oral agreement, which you make with someone else, right? You are basically setting the law for that relationship, and you control exactly what will happen to the property in accordance with your intentions. The aim with this mini-series is for you to begin getting used to wearing your trust glasses, which every time you put them on, you will be able to recognize all of the trusts that you are involved in all around you. For us to get to that stage, however, there are a few things that we need to first discuss to get your brain ticking in the right direction. So, first up, I invite you to think about this. If you do not pay something that you owe, how long do you think it will take for you to have people knocking at your door to take away your property so that it can be sold to settle debts, or worse still, to take you to prison for not paying your debts? Yeah, it can get to that extreme of a level. Well, whatever your answer is, what really matters and needs to be focused on here is the property part. There is a maxim in law that says a thing is not considered completely to belong to anyone if it can be taken from him by chance or occasion. This is exactly it. If your property can be taken away from you by someone else, then logic is really trying to tell you something, right? And this maxim is really saying it all. It shows you that the property was never fully yours in the first place. Let's just sit on that thought for a little bit longer. Did you know that in law, all property needs to have an owner? It's true, all property needs to belong to someone because the maxim ownership cannot be in suspense is very much real in the eyes of the law. So, if you think you own something, but that thing can be taken away from you under certain circumstances, then surely this can only make you wonder, how is this even possible? You own it, right? Well, ownership literally means having the exclusive dominion, control, and right of enjoyment over specific property. But surely, if someone can take away that property from you, then the property you thought you have dominion, control, and right to enjoy, by definition, you did not own it in the way that you thought you did in the first place. Curious, right? So, what is really going on, you may ask? Maybe the clue is in the word ownership. Maybe all of the clues have been guiding us to focus on the ownership all along. The clues lead us to the fact that there are many types and forms of ownership. And it is possible that the ownership that we think we have over our property, including our physical body, is not the type that we actually have. If you truly have exclusive dominion over your property, then this would mean that no one else on the face of this earth could ever take that away from you. It means that your rights to the property are indefeasible, so those rights cannot be undone or transferred to somebody else. So, pull out your logical thinking hat and put that bugger firmly onto your head right now and think with me. If someone can take your property from you, this tells you firmly that you do not have the exclusive dominion you thought you had, which can only mean that the type of ownership you have to your property is actually a type where someone else also has a right to the same property at the same time as you. Believe it or not, the only legal way for this to happen is through the mechanism of trust. Remember, in a trust relationship, there are two parties with ownership rights to the same property, either legal title or equitable title. So you can see where things are going, right? Trusts are everywhere, and you are a party to a trust at all times. This doesn't even require your knowledge about trusts at all. If you and someone else has rights to the same property at the same time, whether express or implied, to the level where if you do not pay your debts, they can come along to take that property away from you, can you see how this can only mean there is a trust relationship at play? You may be wondering though, how is this all possible because you didn't know or you never agreed to this relationship, right? Well, it all has to do with the currency of your country, which is issued by the central bank for you to be able to buy goods and services for you to live, basically. Believe it or not, you are a party to a trust every time you use your country's currency. Again, I have to emphasize that you do not need to know that a trust is at play for you to be party to it, and this is really key. The truth is, the currency of your country is nothing more than a promise of payment. It is not payment, in fact. What do I mean exactly? Well, let's put it this way. Imagine I have a beautiful first edition book that you really like and you really want. Imagine I told you I promise that at 3 p.m. on Friday next week at our local park, I will be there and I will give it to you. Now imagine you trust me, right? I mean, I wouldn't have a reason to lie to you about this, right? So you turn up expecting me to perform on my promise to meet you and to hand over the book. But let's say I don't actually show up, and I never do. You call me up asking where I am, and I just tell you, well, I promise I will meet you there next week, same time, same place, okay? Then imagine you turn up the following week, and again, I don't show up. Would you trust me to keep my word anymore? Even though I never gave you the book like I promised you, would you start acting as if the book is yours, in your hands? I'm willing to bet you would never trust me again. You would never rely on my words anymore, and you certainly would not pretend to have the book in your hands. I mean, if you did continue to trust me, or if you did act like you actually received the book, then that would actually be crazy. The currency we use is what is considered a medium of exchange, and the forms that we all accept is in physical coins and banknotes, or the digital representations of these, such as, for example, electronic money, all of which are issued and accepted as legal tender. So when we refer to payment, this simply means an exchange of value. But as we know, value is subjective. In modern day banking, we all consider a promise as valuable, which is absolutely fine and actually correct when that promise is actually backed by something. When we have open-ended and unfulfilled promises, well, these are not valuable to anyone at all. And at some point, something has to give. Now, I want to show you the evidences for what we have already talked about. So get out your magnifying glass and let's take a proper look at the banknotes. There are two key parts of this note that we need to discuss. Let's focus on this bit right here first, which reads, I promise to pay the bearer on demand the sum of £50. Now, I don't know about you, but this actually raises so many questions for me. Like, for example, I promise to pay? Well, who is the I referring to? Who made the promise? Then the bit that says pay, well, we know that payment just refers to the exchange of value, so what is the value that's being exchanged here? Then the bearer part, well, who is that? On demand, well, who is demanding and ultimately what are they demanding exactly? And the bit, the sum of £50. £50 of what? Pounds is a measurement of mass of an object, a physical object, may I add. So we have all of these questions, but let's actually try to figure out the answers together. Who is making the promise? Well, the answer is found on the note itself. it literally has the chief cashier of the Bank of England sign off on the note. And as the law would see it, whoever signs something is the one consenting and accepting the obligations attached to that promise, which in this case is the promise to pay. Then, what is the value being exchanged exactly? Well, this is the promise itself. The promise is the value, with the promise being represented by the physical note itself. Who is the bearer? Well, this is the one who is holding the physical note in their hand, which is the physical representation of the intangible promise that has been made. I mean, think about it. Can you prove a promise was made any other way? No, not really, because a promise is just a mental construct, an agreement between people, and it just exists in their minds. So to evidence these mental constructs, we have to write things down and make physical representations of these otherwise intangible and impossible to prove mental ideas. Then who is demanding and what are they demanding? Well, it is the bearer, so the one physically holding the note. They're the ones who can demand, and they can demand the fulfillment of the promise that the note represents, right? So the promise to pay. And £50 of what? Because pounds is just a measurement of the mass of an object. Well, this refers to the mass of the gold that these notes used to be redeemable for. Oh yes, things are starting to get interesting. So if we bring all of the clues together, we can see that the one who is physically holding the banknote, which in legal terms is called the bearer and the promisee, they will have the right to approach the chief cashier at the Bank of England, who in legal terms is the promissor, as they were the ones who made the promise, and basically demand that they fulfill their promise of payment, being the equivalent in pounds in gold. Well, hey, would you look at that? Everyone can get some gold in their hands now. How about we all make an appointment with the Bank of England to get this gold now, shall we? So, this marks the end of Act 1 of this 3-part mini-series. So, I will see you all in the next act. Get ready because it gets juicier.